Nintendrew, if you're watching this, this is a response to your video on weird Nintendo 64 controllers. I have similar ones to the ones you mentioned, almost the exact same thing, but slight, ever so slight differences. So I have a SuperPad 64, but my sticker is a little bit different. And then also I have this thing, which is like the one you mentioned, but the sticker is different and also has 2 additional buttons. I'll get to that all in just a minute, but when it comes to our assessment of the feel of the controllers, I feel exactly opposite that you do regarding the Interact SuperPads and also regarding the Mad Catz controller. And I think that's I think that's because of the size of our hands. Because this is me holding the SuperPad 64 in the regular, you know, finger on Z button configuration, and my knuckle isn't coming in contact with the plastic at all. It's really comfortable for me. It's a light rest on the finger, but not the knuckle. And I have full range of motion. Everything's within easy reach for me. And conversely, I do have a problem with the standard N64 controller, because I put my finger on the Z button like that, and 2 of my knuckles are getting crammed up against the friggin' left grip. It's a huge pain in the ass for me to use the actual regular controller. My right hand is comfortable, I can reach everything just fine, but my left hand suffers, and if I play for an extended period of time with that thing, it actually gives me an annoying, like, red welt. And then when it comes to the SuperPad 64 Plus, this is actually my favorite N64 controller. This is my preferred way to play any N64 game. I don't have a problem with the angled joystick, and I think part of the reason that I think it feels so nice is because of the springs, the way that the joystick is situated in the well. It's not a ball, it's 2 sort of hinges, kind of like what you would see in the, I guess, the arm socket of a G.I. Joe, is what it reminds me of. But the tension in the springs keeps the feeling oriented up, even though the joystick is tilted to one side. So, just going by feel, I never really have a problem pressing. But again, because of the size of my hands, I do not feel that the grip is too big on this side. And then on this side, it rests just fine. It's not too small. I get just enough room around the pinky and ring finger, and in this position I don't have to reach for any of the buttons. I just like tilt that way for the difference between B and A, and the C buttons. It's really nice. Again, for me, and I'm pretty sure that's because of my spidery, you know, murderbot hands. But I wanted to get into the 2 buttons right here, because I think you'll find this interesting. In addition to this being the SuperPad 64 Plus instead of just the SuperPad, it has a slow button and an auto button. And I'm just going to show you what those do real quick. We've got Mario 64 running here, and if you press the slow button, it does that. It basically auto-fires the start button to create something of a kind of bullcrap slow-motion effect. Really weird. I don't recommend playing that at all like that. But then it also has an auto button, and it's programmable. So you hold it down, you press the button that you want it to auto-fire, so I've selected B, and now it'll just auto-fire B as much as you want. So I just hold this down, and Mario will do his punch-punch-kick combo to my heart's content. This controller is my preferred one, although I don't really use the auto button because it's not as practical as one might think, with just a few small exceptions. I found it useful in Gex 64 for the tail whip, but that's about it. That's really the only time I've ever extensively used that. Yeah, the Mad Catz controller, getting into that for a second, I don't have that controller, but my friend Edwin did. And the thing about that controller for me is that the ergonomic grooves were in the exact wrong place for me. So I couldn't hold that controller comfortably in a natural resting position on either the center, right, or left grips, because that, like, the grooves guide your hand into a position that wasn't quite natural for me. I would have to reach a little too short for the joysticks or the buttons. It would basically cramp my hands in order to not have the pointed parts of the grips poking into my fingers. I didn't like that controller at all because it wasn't for me. It wasn't comfortable for me. But again, I'm one of those weirdos that actually liked the original Xbox controller because it was so big and clunky and was not designed for normal-sized people. So anyway, that's really about it. I don't think that the SuperPad or the SuperPad that you mentioned, the one that mine is slightly different from, but my point here is, I don't think that the SuperPads are bad controllers, not the ones that you presented. I think that they're not good controllers for you to use. Like you specifically are people that don't have hands of a certain size. I was always under the impression by the name SuperPad that they were for larger hands, but I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if there's like, you know, like a leftorium, but not for left-handed people, but for big-handed people for games. I'm not really sure. Either way, I don't think it was marketed as being that, even though that's what it's good for, in at least my experience. That's just my thoughts on that. So I don't know how well I would take to the HoriPad, for instance, because it looks smaller than the other controllers, and I would worry about my thumbs clicking together. I actually have that problem with PlayStation 3 controllers, DualShocks. So therefore, with any DualShock except for the PlayStation 4 one. Now I'm officially rambling, but those are just my thoughts on the N64 controllers that you showed, and the ones that we have in common. Anyway, anticlimax. HoriPad.